How's it going? I'm Nick Weiss, and this is the second video in my series on blues theory. And what we're going to do right now is explain how to make more complex chords, the chords that are found in the blues. Generally speaking, you're going to find that all of them are going to be 7 chords. Also, some people call them dominant chords. So you'll see, like in the key of G, G7, C7, D7. Some people would call those all, G dominant, C dominant, D dominant. That's kind of a misnomer to call them all dominant chords, but for our uses, that's just fine. If somebody says a dominant chord, they're going to be referring to the kind of chord we're going to talk about today. So we're going to start with our 1 chord, which in the key of G is G. G major. And I'm now going to take that scale, I'm going to go one step further than I did in the last lesson. I'm going to go G, B, D, F sharp. That's going to go to the 7th. So I'm going to go root, 3rd, 5th, 7th. And listen to the chord that we get here. Alright, if you know Color My World by Chicago or Changes by David Bowie, that's the first chord you hear in those 2 songs. Well, I don't know if they're specifically G's, but that is called a major 7th chord right there. Notice I said major 7th. I didn't say G7 because that's not a G7 chord. Root, 3rd, 5th, 7th in the key of G does not give you a G7 chord. Alright? This is one of the most annoying things about our theory system, is that the G7 chord actually has an altered 7th in it. So you have to actually say major to indicate that it is the 7th from the major scale. But if you say G7, it's actually going to have a different 7th in it. The 7th is actually flatted. So what I'm doing now, to flat something means to lower it by a half step. So it doesn't matter what instrument you're on a guitar, if you move something down a fret, that's a half step. You move 1 key over on the piano to the left, you're flatting the note. In this case, I'm going to flat that F sharp and create an F natural. All right, I hope that makes sense. G, B, D, F sharp. Makes a nice pretty chord, but nice pretty jazz chord, but we don't want that. We're not trying to be pretty. We're trying to play the blues. So I'm going to flat that 7th, root, 3rd, 5th, flat 7th, G, B, D, F natural. Okay, and if I combine those notes, we get this sound. Now that sounds more like the blues. In this case, I'm actually omitting the 5th, which would be the D right here. You can generally omit 5ths from chords if you need to. This chord right here, this is another version of a G7 chord. A fuller version of a G7 chord. Here's another version of a G7 chord. Now, as I mentioned before, the only notes that you're going to find in these chords are the root, 3rd, and 5th, and in this case, a flat 7th. And there could be multiple copies of each of those notes in there. We only have 4 notes, but we've got 6 strings here, and I'm playing all 6 of them. So definitely some of those notes are being repeated in there. But there are only G's, B's, D's, and F's found in there. In the blues, all of the chords, in most blueses anyway, all of the chords are 7 chords. So if the progression originally went G, C, D, if there are 1, 4, and 5 chords, we simply make them all 7 chords. Root, 3rd, 5th, flat 7th, starting from all of those roots. You can go through the scale and figure out where they all are, or you can just, if you figure out how to play a 7th chord and figure out where its root is, you can simply move to that root and play a 7th chord from there. So on guitar, if I play a G7 chord right here, but say I wanted to play, a blues in A, well, G was my root right here. I had my first finger right here for that G7 chord. this note right here is A. If I just move my first finger up there, now I'm playing an A7. So that's useful to know. Guitars are nice that way. Other instruments aren't as nice that way. So at any rate, we've got our G7 chord happening here. Now I'm going to build a C7, root, third, fifth, flat seventh. Now my normal seventh would be here. Very nice, you know, jazzy chord again, but not really what we're looking for in this case. I'm going to flat that seventh. Root, third, fifth, seventh, root, third, fifth, flat seventh, starting from C. Oh, now, you know, be like, what are you talking about, root, third, and fifth? Well, things get a little confusing in music theory. It's, you know, it's tough to fit it all into, you know, a couple 10-minute videos, but each chord, the notes would be the fourth, sixth, octave, and 10th of the key, 4, 6, 8, 10, in its natural state. That is also known as the root, third, fifth, and seventh of the 4 chord in the key of G. So the notes in the key of G are the 4th, 6th, octave, and 10th note in the G major scale, or in the key of G. Those are also known as the root, third, fifth, and 7th of the 4 chord. Okay? So, unfortunately, I might go back and forth between those terms because that's just the way music theory is. So hopefully I can clearly explain what I'm talking about when I'm talking about it, but I'll do my best. So we've got root, third, fifth, 7th. Here's root, third, fifth, flat 7th in the key of G, our 4 chord. Root, third, fifth, and flat 7th of our 4 chord in the key of G. C7. Nice bluesy chord there. So I've got my 1 chord, my 4 chord, my 5 chord on a guitar, simple as moving it up 2 frets. Whatever I did from here, my root right here in this particular C7 chord is right under my first finger on the 3rd fret of the A string. The root right here is a D. Alright, and then now I'm playing a D7 chord. My root is under my pointer finger right there. My root is now under my pointer finger on the 3rd fret on the A string. Now to go back to the G chord, my root is under the finger on the E string. Alright, so now, building on what we did from the first lesson, I've now created some more bluesy sounding chords. The ultimate result of adding this flat 7th to those, to the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord is they it sounds bluesier. That's the only difference, really. Is so now here I'll play the blues through once without the 7s in there, and I'll play it through the second time with the 7s in there. So blues in G. 1, 2, here I go. Four chord. Back to 1. 5, 4, 1, 5. This is with this G7. 1 chord. Up to the 4 chord, which is C7. Back to the 1 chord. G7 again, up to D7, 5 chord, 4 chord, 1 chord, 5 chord. Well, I hope that was informative. I'm Nick Weiss. Thanks for watching.